this is Grian, and welcome to another video. Today we're doing another story, another chapter or two inside of the Hermitcraft season Clockwork series. This is still story 1. We are on episode 5. Still trying to recover from whatever I came down with. Like parents think it's allergies, but I also feel like I ran into a cold as well, so I don't know. It's just my nose was being crazy and kind of doing that with my throat was not very good. So if you do see a little bit of a time skip, then yeah, that's probably why. Anyway, let's move on to episode 4, chapter 15. If you haven't read any of the other chapters, be sure you do so because spoilers. Grian stared up at the cobblestone stall he resided in, trying to piece together everything that had happened. He had been taken to the secret room below the safe house by the traitor and left alone. Grian had tried to escape the enclosure he was locked in to no avail, the lever having been moved after Mumbo had been trapped in the room earlier. The men must have assumed that was how the YouTuber had been able to escape, so they made sure that it wouldn't happen again. It was just his luck that they'd be his next victim. And the men had not come too long after and had taken him away. The YouTuber, overhearing that he was being relocated somewhere else to keep him separated from his friends. He wasn't sure why, but the men seemed to think Mr. A had bigger plans for him. He didn't like the sound of that either way. Even if he did escape, he would still have no way of knowing where Mumbo was or anyone else that could have been captured during the time they stayed in the safe house. And no longer felt safe anymore, knowing he couldn't necessarily trust everyone else. He'd been taken to his cell and left here. All he knew was that he was somewhere underground. He did remember going through a portal before then, though. The events seemed to all messed up, fuzzy, and confusing. He couldn't be sure he could even trust his own memory. He'd been told to wait here until Mr. A was ready for him. How long would that take? Could he possibly find a way to escape before the man came to do whatever nonsense he'd been planning for him? He had to try. He couldn't just lie here and do nothing. He needed to find someone who could help him. Would they, though? Hard to know for sure anymore. He sat up on the cold hard cot that he was lying on, wondering how long he'd been trapped here. A day? It felt like it had been longer. He didn't know, since the men never really seemed to give him regular meals. He knew that he had at least swallowed down 3, but that didn't necessarily mean it had been 3 days. It could be less or more for all he knew. He just knew he'd been here longer than he should have. He needed to try something. If he could get away from this place and hide from the men for long enough, maybe he would have a chance. He stood on his feet, stretching as he looked over to the door, the light from the window pouring into the small room as they walked over to it. He had nothing on him, the men having taken everything a long while ago, so he was stuck with his own merits. He looked through the window to the hall. It looked slightly empty apart from a guard standing by his door. He wouldn't be able to escape easily with him standing there. He calculated his situation, knowing he couldn't just punch his way out of this one. He could try to wait until the next meal and try to ambush the men or take his chance by making a run for it. Maybe he would have a chance of escape. The more he thought about it, the crazier the idea seemed. He decided to leave the door alone as he walked around the room quietly, looking around and touching some of the walls. Wasn't sure why he was doing it. Maybe he was just bored, deciding to admire the walls to cure his boredom. We're trying to find a secret. He didn't have to look for long when he noticed something small under the bed. There were piled broken floorboards. His eyes widened as he realized what it was. A key. He looked again, and was almost shocked when he saw a shiny metal thing. Even further in, a pickaxe? Had someone been here? How had they been allowed to hide this in here? Were there more? Grian hesitated for a moment. He glanced back at the door. The man still had his back towards him. He wasn't watching him like a hawk, as he'd expected. Surely the man knew better than to think he'd just submit to their will. Now he had a chance to get out. Hope filled him as he stood up, storing the key in a hidden pocket as he picked up the pick, admiring its dull shine in the light. As he walked over to a dark corner and started to mine, going upward slightly, locking the entrance again with the blocks. He'd hopefully slow down anyone if they had seen him. The darkness was thick around him. He ignored it, not wanting to be too afraid to keep going. He had to push on. He couldn't give up now. He was so close. He finally dug his way out onto the surface, hidden by some bushes as he peeked out, spotting a few men lingering around. He doubted they would see him if he made a run for it. Where exactly would he go, though? He had no idea where he was or where the nearest safe house was. How could he possibly know where to go? He had to be smart about this. Maybe he could find the portal again, though he had a feeling he was underground where he was. He wasn't about to take his chances. He had to flee before the men went looking for him. He had time to figure out what to do then. Maybe he could find a way to make a new portal. He wasn't even sure that would work. Yes, he knew how to make a nether portal, but he doubted that would work. He needed to go to a different world. That was something he didn't think he could do on his own. He pushed the thought aside, deciding to think about the small stuff when he came to it, as he snuck away into the darkness of the trees, trying not to think about how helpless he was right now. He had no weapon besides pickaxe to deter himself. It was worth something, though. It had to be worth it as he quickened his walk to a hurried run, hoping no one had seen where he'd run off to. The men had to know he'd escaped by now, right? No doubt they know these woods better than he did. He was at a disadvantage, even though he had a pretty good head start. At least that's what he thought. His thoughts were interrupted when he heard the roar of a helicopter somewhere above. As he looked, took in a sharp breath. Where did that thing come from? Had it been part of the little base they had? Maybe he hadn't noticed it at his angle. Was it trying to look for him? He kept running, spotting a clearing ahead as he saw something. Spotting what was his mind imagining things? He'd found a safe house, though it appeared that it hadn't been used in years. Maybe he could try making a run for it? He stopped in his tracks when he saw the copter hovering overhead, slowly lowering as he noticed ropes falling down, 3 men jumping down to the ground. Going the way you took her? One of the men sneered. Looks like we were right to assume he'd go here. Another man laughed. A safe house is as safe as the person living in it is willing to make it. The first man snickered. What do you have to say to that? Grian said nothing as he turned and ran off in another direction, hearing the men charging behind him. The thought of being so close to safety was downplayed by the men. Clearly, they knew what he was trying to do. He needed to outsmart them. He couldn't just let them get away with whatever they were planning for him and his friends. Might as well give up, one of the men colored. We have you outnumbered and surrounded. Grian gasped, realizing only a moment later as he froze in his tracks, seeing another few men coming to cut him off. Nah, he was cornered, trapped, with only a pickaxe to defend himself. He took it out and held it in his hand, firmly. I'm not going without a fight. So be it, Eatber. One of them said darkly as he lunged for him. Grian squealed in surprise as he tried to dodge him, only to be knocked down by another man, pinned to the ground as he groaned in defeat. So much for a heroic adventure, one of them mused. We should take him back and tie him to a cot to make sure he can't get away again. I'd like to add that we try moving him to a more secure room, one of them added. So long as Mr. A gets to meet it, this one, I'm good with that. Third man replied, seeming to be the one in charge. Now, come on, let's go. There's no need to rush. No one's here anyway. Grian had no way to prevent the men from binding his arms behind him or pulling him to his feet. No way to escape being dragged away from the abandoned safe house, realizing it wouldn't have mattered anyway. Chances were there was no communicator in that safe house, so he had no way to call for help. He was stuck until someone found him. But would anyone find him? He couldn't be so sure anymore. He tried everything he could, and it all summed up to nothing. He'd failed. Unfortunately, that's where we're going to end it today. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this chapter and basically this story. Yeah, so far. I guess chapter 16 will be whatever it is. It's not necessarily going to be every week. I might sparse it up a little bit if, I don't know, it just depends. Anyway, I'm just rambling on. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any thoughts, questions, theories, be sure to let me know in the comments below. And yeah, I will see you in the next one, whenever that might be. Goodbye.